come here from Sweden. I think she swam, right? Swam from Sweden?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't think she swam.
Got her over the water somehow.
Taking a boat.
Okay, so it was a boat that had an engine, but it was run by solar power or some crap, and it was a zero carbon footprint. Of course, the boat was made out of carbon fiber. That's a problem. So what we have is Gregory Wrightstone. He's going to come on. He's going to debunk all this climate change garbage, give you some ammunition you're going to need when you see these friends and neighbors and coworkers that are all pushing for it. Keep it here. Stations across the land, joepags.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, all right there, plus NewsMaxTV. It's the Joe Pags Show. Glad to have you here. Really glad to have this guy back. It's Gregory Wrightstone. He's written a book called Inconvenient Facts that really tweaks the left. They really have a problem because he actually tells the truth about so-called global warming or so-called climate change. Greg, how are you?
Hey, really good, man. Is it me or are these climate crazies getting worse by the week? It feels that way, but
It's not you. No, it's not you. There's something very wrong. Now, of course, we had the plant that was in the middle at that AOC thing. She wasn't really suggesting eat the babies. She was some plant for Lyndon LaRouche's group or something. But there really are people that are crawling around the streets of the United States. They're crawling around, Greg, and they're playing like they're dead, and they're pouring blood on the bull on Wall Street. Yeah. And we're all listening to a 15, 16-year-old kid who skips class on Fridays. Yeah, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, let's start with these people pouring blood on the Wall Street. These are members of Extinction Rebellion. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're new to the United States, but they're coming soon to a city near you. They were huge in UK and Europe. Particularly, they originated out of the UK. There was an old failed organic carrot farmer who was the founder, and he actually he states very clearly and plainly that their goal is not climate change or do anything about the climate, but rather to use the climate change as a tool to advance their system and their notion. He wants to bring down all representative governments and replace it with his own version. And he says,
is it because he failed? His problem is that his carrots didn't grow or something? What was his issue?
Well, it might be. And let me just read you something here. Name of the game. You've got to bring down all the regimes in the world, ideally simultaneously, and replace them. Replace the National Citizens Council. And then he goes on to say, Extinction Rebellion isn't about the climate. It's not even about climate justice. It's a call to our community to say we're a climate movement because we're not. We're a rebellion.
Well, what does he want to replace society with, does he say? Or should we all die?
I think it begins with F and ends in ashes. I'm just a guess. These are fascists masquerading as climate warriors. And these guys, they're not as violent yet as Antifa, but he also warns clearly that people may need to die. There may need to be thousands of people jailed, and some people may need to die to get to where he's going. And so these people are scary. It's getting, I mean, my daughter, she just talked to me this week. She says, you need to think about a gun in your first floor room and have it a gun safe and have it, because these people, we get some pretty nasty things said about me. And
no, I'll bet, but you're just out there purveying the truth. The name of the book is Inconvenient Facts. His name is Gregory Wrightstone. Go and get it. What's interesting is this is not a new sort of commentary or narrative. This has always been the far left progressives, that people will have to die, that we have too many people on earth as it is. I mean, Paul Ehrlich, you can go back as far as you want on this guy. And everything he had to say, we would disappear in a blue mist soon. The fishes would all dry up from the sea. We're going to all die if we don't stop having babies. Everybody should have abortions. And, in fact, we should start whittling down the population. What's wrong with these people? Why is this about population control to them? Once they've been born, nobody else can exist? What happens?
Yeah, and that's really, this goes back to that Malthusian philosophy that originated in the late 1800s of overpopulation. But what we see today is that because of rising temperatures and increasing CO2, we've talked many times, I'm a huge proponent of an Earth that's thriving and prospering. Humanity's benefiting from rising temperatures and increasing CO2, but we see that crop production is outpacing population growth. They're warning of famine. There's no famine on the horizon. They're warning us about mass extinctions. It's not happening, and it's not going to. We're doing a really good job growing more crops every year, and we're doing a really, really good job taking care of endangered species. And if you want to get, there's so much to deconstruct when we talk about this Greta Thunberg, the 16.
Well, I want to get into her because those who don't know, and you probably should if you're on social media or if you watch the news, but this is a girl that at 14 or 15 started skipping class on Fridays. She's now 16, and she's the preeminent person on Earth with more knowledge than anybody else on climate change. It turns out we're stealing her future. We're stealing her life. We are taking away her fun and everything else that goes along with her mother, who's an opera singer internationally, has stopped flying now. So stop purveying, and supporting the family. So she's not singing anymore because Greta says you should probably stop. Here's a 16-year-old little girl, a punk, some would say, who doesn't feel like going to school on Fridays, who's been indoctrinated by her parents, I guess, or by somebody who didn't, Greg, and correct me if I'm wrong, she did not start walkouts of millions and millions of people on planet Earth from Sweden. Nobody even heard of her, ever. What do you think is behind her? It's not really about her. She's the puppet. Who's behind her? Who's doing it?
Yeah, that's one thing I've not heard anything. I've looked. There's been a lot written. No one's really said who's funding her.
But it's not her. You and I would not know of her from some small village in Sweden. We just wouldn't.
Yeah, she got a trip over. So she didn't want to fly. She wanted to keep her carbon footprint down. So she took a carbon fiber racing yacht made of the same petroleum products entirely that she wants to ban. That's the first irony, right? Oh, well, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then we know of at least 4 transatlantic flights that were required to ferry the crew from the racing yacht back and forth from England to New York City. And then she gets up and she starts yelling at us, how dare you? How dare she? How dare she tell us, a 16-year-old? Now, let me tell you what, Joe, when I was 16, I was stupid.
Listen, I can't even imagine. You were so much smarter at 16 than I was at 16. That's how stupid I was. So you're right. We used to assume that 16-year-olds weren't very smart and didn't have much education or life experience, but suddenly she's the authority, Gregory.
And not only that, and we're not going to, she has certain issues.
She does.
Of psychological. I was on with an interview with the psychiatrist to the stars from Beverly Hills last, and we talked about, and this woman just flat out said, I'm sorry, the girl's mentally ill. She just is. I'm a psychiatrist, and I diagnose things.
Well, she's got Asperger's. She's on the autism spectrum from what we've told.
All the details.
No, you're right, but there's an issue here that nobody's talking about.
Not only is she young, but she's got all these issues, and we're going to listen to her. We're going to listen and take her advice on how to deindustrialize America, how to economically cripple our nation and the Western world. No, thank you. No,
yeah.
But I went to the climate strike here in Pittsburgh, one of the rallies, and I listened to the speakers. They ranged in age from 5 to 18. 5 years old, get it. But it wasn't the students, the young people I talked to, although I was there with a camera crew, and every young person I asked them, well, what are you willing to give up to avert this crisis? I asked them, are you willing to give up your iPhone? Are you willing to give that up today?
You'd have to.
Not one. You'd
have to.
Nope. Not one person said, well,
your sunglasses, the tires on the car. What exactly would you give up? And the answer is nothing. They just want to yap about it because they've been told to.
Yeah. But there were 2 things that big takeaways from that when I was there. Number one, the adults that were there were frankly ignorant of the climate change facts that you and I have talked about. That's the big thing. They're there rallying and protesting, and they don't know what the heck they're talking about. And second, the big takeaway was, it goes back to this Extinction Rebellion. It was a strong anti-capitalist, pro-Marxist sentiment there. Probably the most common sign I saw was one that read, system change, not climate change.
Yeah.
It's not about climate.
And that's an honest poster, by the way. It is author Gregory Wrightstone. The name of the book is Inconvenient Facts. It's the #1 environmental book on Amazon right now. Go and get this book. This is the ammunition that you've been looking for. Now, that's interesting that you segued to that, because AOC's former chief of staff, who has now left, admitted this wasn't about the climate at all. This is about the economy. This is really about you can take over the economy if you scare people enough to believe they're going to die if you don't let them do it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And they're doing a great job of it. But you know what, Joe? I'm optimistic, because as I travel around the country, I just talked to random people in the airports, the guy next to me or the lady next to me in the airplane. Everybody I meet is thirsty for the kind of information that you and I talk about, the inconvenient facts about climate change. They just don't hear.
Well, what happens is you get around the dinner table or Thanksgiving's coming up, and then Uncle whomever, who's a far left-wing progressive, says, because we're eating turkey, it's going to end up killing babies in Ethiopia. And you don't really have an argument. You know, what's the answer? Well, the answer is, here's Greg's book. The inconvenient facts are in here. They're above reproach. Why not make it happen? I mean, why not get the book and then show them, here, read chapter whatever.
And what's really powerful, too, I'm holding up my Android here, because we have a smartphone app that I think is... we're approaching, I think, 50,000 downloads.
Nice.
And it's the information that's in the book. You can have it in the palm of your hand, and it's just, it's a powerful tool to carry around with you. And that's
trust me when I say, every time I have you on, I get flooded with emails. What's the guy's name again? What's the name of the book again? Because this information is really important. Last time, and we've spoken about this, I think, the last 2 times, but it bears mentioning again, that after checking out what happened under the now melted, the thawed out frozen tundra, the former frozen tundra, you said that there were signs that they were growing citrus in places where nobody would ever think you could grow citrus back centuries ago, which means it was much warmer there than we've seen in the intermediary. And the bottom line is, Earth changes, climate changes, cycles change, and we probably don't have a whole lot to do with it.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm kind of stressed out because I'm giving a talk Tuesday. There's a fellow, Michael Mann, an acolyte from Penn State.
Okay.
Now, Michael Mann's the guy for the hockey. He believes that today's temperatures are unusual and unprecedented, nothing like this in 2,000 years. He's speaking before me. I'm speaking after, and we're completely contrast, and then we're going to have a debate after that. That's at a geologic conference. So I'm a little bit stressed. I'm putting this presentation together right now, and that's what I'm talking about.
I don't purport to know. I don't purport to know anything compared to you when it comes to climate change. I'm learning from you. But do me a favor. In the debate, if you feel like it, ask him this. How do you know what the temperature was 2,000 years ago? Because he doesn't. He has no clue what the temperature was specifically 2,000 years ago. And why is it that I watch my television news every night? And I know that I bring this up a lot. It's not really empirical. It's anecdotal. But, you know, we almost tied a record from 1898. All right, well, why was it so damn hot in 1898? And nobody wants to talk about that, as if something happened between then and now. And why weren't we that hot gradually every single year setting new records?
Yeah, the question I like to ask people is, what's the ideal temperature? What is it?
Great one.
Yeah.
And I have no idea. Yeah, I like it at 65 in my studio.
Yeah, a little cooler at night. But Dr. Michael Mann, when he was asked that, he said, well, of course we know what the ideal temperature is before we started adding CO2 to the atmosphere. But you know where that would put us? Squarely in the middle of the little ice age. Horrifically. It was, people died, famine,
That's a great
pestilence, mass depopulation. That's what he wants us to get back to. Maybe
they want another ice age. They want another 6 feet of glacier on top of our heads. Then they would be happy, Gregory. You know that. And again, this has nothing whatsoever to do with the weather, the climate, the cycles, any of that. It's all about the taking over through regulation of the entirety of our population. And that's really, and only the few like AOC, they get to sit on the top of that heap and still drive around. She got a $300 haircut today or something, and drive around in an SUV.
$290.
Right. I overestimated. Right. She might have left a tip. But at the end of the day, they want to be the power. They want to be those who rule because they're the smart ones, and we're just the dumb minions that please give us some food, please give us a place to work, please give us some money. I'm out of time, and we always do this. We could do like 25 minutes every time. One day, and we should plan this, we should take phone calls for you live on the air. We should do that.
Or do a climate change lie of the week.
That would be perfect. It's Gregory Wrightstone. Get his book, Inconvenient Facts. You've got to go and get the real truth before you just take what Uncle Bart's going to say at the Thanksgiving Day table and then just be quiet about it. Keep it here. We're coming back on the Joe Pags Show. Stay here.